Good afternoon, and we're here for the final session after a long, long day. The best is the last. And I'm delighted to introduce Alexis Conran, British actor, writer, TV presenter, and many, many other things that he's done in his life. And we're very privileged to have him come along. And his presentation is Hacking Human Nature. Have we all got a nature? You're going to learn how to lose it. Alexis, welcome.
Thank you so much. Hello. I would like to start with getting everybody to do something all together. So put your pens and papers down, or your phones, just for a second, or your cups of teas. I need both your hands to be free. So yeah, free up your hands. Everybody join in, even those at the back. Hold your hands out in front of you like this. Good. Twist your wrists so your palms are facing outwards. Now put your right hand over your left. That's where we get to find out who knows their right from their left. There's always one. It's like, Clasp your fingers together. Put your thumbs to the floor. Good, just like this gentleman's doing right here. Excellent. Now, if you can't do what I'm about to do, you all owe me £1. There's about 40 of you in here, so this will pay for a night out in the pub. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Twist your wrists so your thumbs are pointing to the ceiling. No? No one? Who says crime doesn't pay? Thank you, sir. You can be part of the lecture if you like. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alexis Conran. I used to do a show on the BBC called The Real Hustle. We used to scam members of the public and show people how the scams worked. We wrote and presented over 500 scams in 11 series. The show was played all over the world. There were different versions. There was a Russian version, Israeli version, German version. Lots of people took the material and sort of put it in their own countries. And I want to speak to you for the next 45 minutes or so about human nature, scams, and why we will continue to fall for scams for the foreseeable future, unfortunately. Although it does keep us all in the job, so there's a silver lining to that. However, it is important to understand why we keep falling for these scams. Now, before I get into the very particulars, I want to give you just an idea of what we're dealing with in the security sector today, because we are very good at putting together some incredibly clever systems to keep scammers out. Systems that actually, on paper, one might say, are foolproof. They can't be broken. However, it's that human element that comes into play where the vulnerabilities start to appear. Because in security, as you well know, you're only as safe as your weakest link. And more often than not, that weakest link is the human link. Now, two things we need to get out of the way in a room such as this with people who are security savvy is most of the stuff that I'm going to tell you, you're going to be thinking two things. One, I'm never going to fall for this. I'm way too smart. I've educated myself. Our business has spent a whole load of money in protecting us from things like this. And of course, that is mistake number one. Everybody can be scammed. I can be scammed on my way back to London this afternoon, even though I've pretty much pulled off every scam that you can think of, right? You can be scammed walking out of this building. Why? Because being scammed is not a measure of your IQ. It's being at the wrong place at the wrong time. So let's start with this. The surest way to be deceived is to consider oneself cleverer than others. Just don't do it, okay? In fact, some of the times when you get, and I remember in The Real Hustle, when we got people who were quite security savvy and were quite sort of awake to scams and cons, it was easier to scam them. Why? Because you knew what they were thinking. You knew the direction that their psyche, their brains, their mentalities was going to take them. So if you know where someone's going to go, you can plan a heist or a scam accordingly, okay? The next problem that we have is, what do scammers look like? Now, this is where we have to deal with a little bit of entertainment folklore. Because if I asked you, like a con artist, think of a con man right now. In your head, you probably get images such as this, right? This is David Niven in the Pink Panther films. Or this, right? The Sting, notice dinner jackets, bow ties, handsome men. Ocean's 11, right? Same thing. We are in love with this idea of the con man, because that's what folklore has taught us, right? The truth is, of course, a little bit more like this. These fine gentlemen are the gentlemen responsible for the Hatton Garden robberies in 2014. Okay, you see the contrast, right? There's no black tie. The truth is, what do scammers look like today? Well, they could be anybody, right? Any ethnicity, any background, any social standing, any sex as well. It really can be anybody. Stop trying to find people you know here. I've made sure that none of the people are in this room. Actually, incidentally, are you aware of this website called thispersondoesn'texist.com? Yeah? So, how amazing is that? For those of you who don't know, it's a website, thispersondoesn'texist.com, and you go on there, and the images on there are of people who don't exist, but they are realistic images. AI has taken 2 faces or 3 faces and put together to make a completely new image, which of course is a problem now when you're dealing with things like romance scams. Because one of the bits of advice we'd always give out to romance scams, if someone approaches you, do a reverse image search on Google, see if they've stolen someone else's picture to use on a dating site. Well, with This Person Doesn't Exist, that image won't have appeared somewhere else. But anyway, I digress. I'm going to tell you about the most famous diamond robbery in history. It took place in 2003 in February at the Antwerp Diamond Center. And it was masterminded by this man. This guy's called Leonardo Notarbartolo. He was from Milan. He was a diamond dealer in Milan. And he decided to pull off this heist in Antwerp. Antwerp, for those of you who don't know, is basically the mecca of diamonds. Pretty much every diamond you ever set your eye on will have at some point in his life passed through a dealer in Antwerp. The Diamond Center is a massive building with lots of offices, and in the basement it's got a huge safe. The safe looks a little bit like this. It's got a 3-ton door, and it is packed with some incredible safety features. Let's go through the door, right? The door is very, very heavy. It's a very, very good quality design door. It's got a seismic detector, which means you can't drill it. So you can't drill through it. It's got your classic combination lock. That's the dial with all the numbers. You go left and right. It's also got a key on it. So you've got to use the combo and the key. Once you get past that, I forgot to mention, up at the top right-hand corner of the door, you've got 2 metal plates. That's your standard alarm system. Those 2 metal, it's like the same ones that you've got in your houses. Those 2 metal plates come apart. When the alarm is armed, the alarm will go off. Now, once you get through there, there's another door, which is a sort of a convenience door. When you open the safe door in the morning, you leave the big safe door open, but you close the door that is behind that. It's like a sort of a prison door, and that's got a standard lock on it. You've got to get through that as well. Once you're through there, you've got another problem. There are 2 sensors in there. One is a light detector, so any light from a flashlight, remember this is in the basement, there's no windows, any light, the alarm will go off. And in the very back there with that camera, that's an infrared sensor, any movement or infrared movement, the alarm will go off. Yet, one Monday morning in February 2003, the guards came out to open the door first thing in the morning, and they found over 100 boxes ransacked. Some boxes were left untouched. They just didn't have enough time to get through all of them. And $100 million worth of goods stolen. Interestingly enough, I did a podcast series that was voiced by Michael Caine, Sir Michael Caine, called Heist. It's on Audible. And episode 1 is all about the Antwerp diamond heist. And I interviewed the investigating officer who was first at the scene. He described to me, he said he was walking through the ransacked boxes and he heard a crunch and he stopped and he pulled his foot out and he picked up a bracelet that had on it a price tag of $45,000, which he just destroyed. Another funny moment was he used his mobile phone. He called the alarm company and he said, "What's going on with the safe at the Antwerp Diamond Center?" They said, "Well, everything's fine." He said, "Well, how can it be fine? I'm talking to you from inside the safe. How can it still be armed?" Now, how did he do it? Well, The tech side is actually the easiest side. Those 2 metal plates, he arranged for his partners in crime. I should have told you as well. He spent 2 years planning this, by the way. He got an office at the Antwerp Diamond Centre. For 2 years, he monitored routine about opening and closing the safe. What was the routine? What was the protocol? Carried around with him a video camera, videoing everything. And he studied it and studied it and studied it with his co-conspirators. Now, what they did with the 2 metal plates up at the top, they unscrewed both of them and kept them together when they opened the door. The way to bypass the light is in pure darkness, they just put a bucket over it and sellotaped around it, so that was held in darkness, the one on the ceiling. And the one at the back, the infrared one, that was disabled with, we think, a styrofoam cup and hairspray. Now, hairspray can disable infrared movement sensors. I think the new ones now that you get in your homes are not susceptible to that. So please don't start spraying hairspray just to see if it works. You're just going to ruin your good equipment. However, there were 2 things that Leonardo knew that he wouldn't have. Okay? First, the combination to the lock. He just knew he wouldn't get that. Second was the key. Now, the keys in these kind of safes come in 2 parts. The long part's called the pipe, and the short part's called the stamp. And again, if you think about it, that's a good security feature, right? Because the pipe can be any length, and the stamp, of course, like any key, can have any kind of teeth, any cuttings. Again, the security feature is you take them both apart. You keep one in one place, one in another place. So, how did he do it? From what we can tell, and from what we know, when it came to the combination, 2 things that were quite amazing came to light in the investigation. 1, only 4 people had that combination, one of which had written the combination on a piece of paper in his wallet. Okay? Now, I know, there's a little sort of shaking of the head. How many of you have written down a password somewhere and kept it? You don't have to put your hands up in this room. Oh, okay, fine, volunteers. We've all been there. The second, and we think this is how he got in, because again, this isn't the kind of dial that you can peek, by the way. It's got another security feature on it. This isn't the exact dial on that door. It's got a security feature on it where actually you can only see the number that you're dialing in if you're standing directly above the dial. Mm-hmm. Even if you're stood either side, you can't sort of peek and shoulder surf someone like we see in ATM machines where you shoulder surf a PIN number. So it was kind of impossible. So we think that this is what happened. He noticed that every night when the guards would close the door for overnight, what they're meant to do is they're meant to give that dial a spin. And the spin nullifies the lock, if you like, which means that the next morning you have to come back in and dial in the lock. Now, he noticed that they weren't always giving that a spin, which meant that they didn't have to put the combination in the night they came to rob the safe. Now, the modern equivalent of that, of course, is the Keep Me Signed In boxes that we all love to use for our social media accounts, for our email accounts, for our Amazon accounts, for all those accounts. Keep me signed in. I don't want to type in my password. Why are you bothering me? This is an extra hassle that I don't want to take. That's exactly the same attitude that saw $100 million worth of diamonds get stolen. Next, the key. He noticed that every time they opened the door in the morning, they would go into a little back room just before they came to opening the door. And sure enough, on the night when they went to rob the safe, he went to that little back room and he found a pipe, and at the end of the pipe, the stamp. So he had the key because they didn't want to carry it around the building because they were afraid they were going to lose it, so they put it in a little cubby hole. So essentially, a system that was impregnable, if used correctly, was compromised. Why? Because it wasn't being used properly. Now, I'd like to echo what the previous speaker was talking about, which is, if you think about staff, if you think about undervalued staff, these 2 guards, all they were doing all day was opening and closing that safe door whilst waiting and being sort of frowned upon and hurried by really rich diamond dealers who weren't paying them a single bit of attention, saying, open the door, close the door, I want my box now, right? Not highly paid, not incredibly well valued, and also probably quite aware that soon their jobs were going to be replaced by some sort of machinery. So protocol wasn't really followed, and also protocol wasn't really given the importance. You know, I'm sure if you sat them down and said, look, if you don't spin that dial every night, this could happen. If you don't separate the pipe and the key, the stamp every night, this could happen. Too many times we hand over protocol and procedure to staff without explaining why they're doing it and without making sure that they understand why they're doing it. We just give them protocol. We just give them procedure and go, do it. Do it like this because it's safe. And that's sometimes just not good enough. I'm going to play you a clip from The Real Hustle next, just to give you an idea of what I got up to. This clip was from our Las Vegas series. And it just starts, I'm going to start talking a little bit about the psychology behind the scams. I think this is a good example. Just a little pretext. You're going to see me enter a jewelry shop with a lady. Now, this lady, I just met her literally less than 5 minutes before entering the shop. I approached her in the shopping mall. It was a strip mall in Las Vegas. And I said, I want to buy my wife a piece of jewelry. You have the same complexion as her, and I'm absolutely useless in buying jewelry. Would you mind helping me? Come in, put a necklace on, tell me what you think about it, and, you know, help me out. You know, I was very nice, I was very polite, I was very courteous. She was there with a friend, and she escorted me into this jewelry shop. So have a look at this.
Alex enters the jewelry store with his newfound squeeze.
How are you? Great.
Little does she know she's going to be aiding and abetting him in stealing a $5,000 necklace. The shopkeeper assumes that they're together and that he's treating her to a piece of jewelry.
Yeah, special occasion, so we need to get something nice. So, well, that's, how about, I quite like that one there. Well, this one's quite nice. Actually, can we try this one? I think that would suit her because that's quite classy.
Yeah, it's nice.
Well,
Beautiful. Yeah,
it's nice. I'd like.
Yeah.
Can we have a look at it?
Sure.
I just feel how heavy it is. It's all right. I mean, it's quite. These look like teardrops. Do you mind if she tries it on? Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. Actually, do you have any mirrors in here? Nothing?
And that's it. The first stage of the mission is accomplished. But how? Alex enters the store with a $20 necklace hidden in his left hand.
Actually, can we try this one?
He looks for the one that most resembles his cheap necklace and asks to inspect it.
I just feel how heavy it is. It's all right.
With the $5,000 necklace in his possession, he asks for a mirror.
Do you have any mirrors in here?
This allows him to turn his back on the shopkeeper and his supposed partner and switch the $5,000 store necklace for the cheap one in his hand. Let's see that again. He transfers the store's necklace from his left hand to his right, and then lets the cheap necklace in his left hand drop into view. The store's necklace is now concealed in his right hand.
I'm looking at the mirrors now.
Now for stage 2. With the cheap necklace round the girl's neck, he's only got a few seconds to get out before the shopkeeper notices the switch. Alex slips his right hand into his pocket, simultaneously depositing the necklace and setting off his phone.
Hello? 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 Sorry, it's my work. Hang on 1 second. Sorry.
As the shopkeeper takes a closer look at the necklace on the girl, Alex steps outside to get a better signal.
Hello?
This is not a necklace idea.
The shopkeeper immediately realizes that the necklace has been switched.
Piper?
It's a race against time. Alex needs to get out of there now.
This is not the same necklace.
Is that the same necklace? Okay, let me go get the guy. Security?
Please.
Yeah.
Pedal to the metal, and he's off.
This being Las Vegas, when he says security, that means a man with a gun. Which is rather worrying. Now, having done all these scams, I just want to talk to you about the psychology behind these scams. There are 5 principles that every scam I've ever pulled has had at least one of these principles present. Sometimes all 5 are in there. But I think it's useful to remind ourselves of these psychological principles because a lot of the time scammers are really targeting you those moments where you're not thinking, those moments where you're making assumptions, your human nature, if you like, right? Where you're just making these assumptions. It's that gray area where you're not quite conscious of what you're thinking about, but it just happens because that's what we do. So let's start with the first one, misdirection. Okay, the trick I played on you in the beginning with the hands. Obviously, I can't do that with my hands. I had to disengage my hands and put them back together. The moment of misdirection was when I pointed to the gentleman in the front. Now, why does misdirection work? Because you can't think on too many things at the same time. You're sitting there with your hands like that. You're looking at over there. You're not going to notice that my hands came out and then came back together in a different way. The brain can't really focus on too many things at the same time. We think we can, but we actually can't. We're only really taking in what we need in order to make decisions from moment to moment. So things like pickpockets, for example, use misdirection in order to lift your stuff. Incidentally, where would you find a pickpocket if you wanted to spot one?
On the train.
On the train, yeah. Crowded spaces. Anywhere else? Buses, trains, anywhere where you need to invade someone's personal space without it feeling a bit weird. If I just came up and stood like 2 feet away from you, it just feels odd. Why? Well, because there's plenty of space. But if I did exactly the same thing, we stood on the tube, you're sat down and I'm stood up, it feels normal, right? And incidentally, if you definitely want to find a pickpocket, you need to look for a pickpocket sign, okay? Now, the reason why pickpocket signs attract pickpockets is because when you see that sign, what do? You do that, right? You go, oh, where's my stuff? Right, okay. You've just identified where your valuables are to a watching pickpocket, okay? So that's one way to find them. Now, of course, in the cyber world, what can misdirection be? Well, misdirection can be anything that takes your focus away from what you should be thinking. I did a program for Channel 5. I'm about to do another one on scam text messages. In fact, I think we're going to be speaking to National Crime Agency in the program as well. And these scam messages use misdirection in a very different way. Why? Because they focus your attention away from what you should be doing. So by using spoof text message technology, I've got a little program that I can use to send you a text message pretending I am whoever I want to be. Now, I can pretend I'm someone in your phone book, but I can also pretend I'm the NHS or I'm your bank. The strength of me pretending that I'm your bank is that if I know that you bank with Lloyds, I can use the Lloyds logo as they use it. When I say the Lloyds logo, I need to know if they're all capitals or just L capital or what spacing they use. If I get that correct, then the text message I am going to send is going to sort itself in the conversation that you've already been having with Lloyds for the last God knows how many years. It is impossible for you, just by looking at the text message, to know that that didn't come from Lloyds. Now, if that message reads, did you just spend $2,500 in the Apple Store in New York? If this isn't you, please click on the link below to get through to the fraud department. Right, there's the misdirection. You're worrying about your money, and you're about to do something stupid, which is click on a link. Okay? So again, misdirection doesn't have to be a visual thing. It can be something up here. Get you worried about something so that you do something stupid, which is click on a link. I mean, part of, and this is, you're getting an exclusive here, you know, I am so opposed to hyperlinks being included in text messages by any company. I think it's about time that we just said to companies, do not put links in any text messages. The amount of fraud you're enabling by using that kind of communication with your customers is costing us tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of pounds every year lost to scams. You know, the Royal Mail scam, I'm sure you've all had a text message from Royal Mail saying, click on this link to pay this small charge in order to get the package. You know, again, that is a form of misdirection, right? Next up, we've got time pressure. This is a legitimate sales technique, of course, time pressure. So you could assume, for example, that time pressure is a way of just rushing you through to make a decision that otherwise, had you had enough time, you wouldn't have made. Very much a tool in the con man's arsenal is just to pressure you. You know, those deals, it's only available for the next hour or so. And in the Real Hustle, we really used time pressure a lot. If we found someone was dithering, you know, one of us would play, we'd play good cop, bad cop most of the time. One of us would come in and go, oh, yeah, no, great news. Yeah, no, this other guy who's on for the deals, he could be down here in 15 minutes, you know. We'd just make sure that this guy would hear and go, oh, no, I don't want to miss out. Yeah? And that's kind of getting people to sort of rush a little bit. So time pressure is actually really, really important. That's why I always say to people, you know, be careful if you're being rushed into something. That should be an alarm bell. It should be a red flag. And look how well it works. I mean, look at Cyber Monday and Black Friday. People buying all kinds of stuff they don't need. Why? Because it's only available today. You know, it's really powerful, this stuff. Opportunity is another one. Well, we call it the good deal syndrome. Okay? The Real Hustle always ended up with, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. The truth is that we are all, me included, susceptible to, oh, this is a good deal. Right? Oh, this is great. You know, we all love the idea of getting something for nothing. We all love the idea that we're beating the system. When I tell people that, you know, when I started off with sleight of hand stuff and cards, and one of my particular interests has been cheating at casino games, whether that's blackjack, poker, any sort of card game or dice game. I learned how to manipulate dice. I learned how to switch dice. I learned how to switch cards in and out blackjack tables. Again, not because I wanted to use these, but because I'm just a bit weird. But when I tell people that, people go, oh, does that mean you could cheat in a casino? Oh, amazing. Now, think about that. The casinos are very honest about what they do. They tell you, come and play these games. We have fixed them so that we will always make money and you will always lose money, right? The house edge, it's there for you to see if you go to Las Vegas. It'll tell you the house edge in every game. You know, the house edge that you get in blackjack, it's for every £100 you spend, the casino will take 98, right? Over the long run. Yeah, you might be a lucky winner, but over the long run, they will win. And yet, when I tell people I can cheat a casino, they get excited. I mean, if I said to people I can shoplift, they wouldn't go, oh, can you go into Sainsbury's and steal some stuff? You know, that's a crime. You shouldn't do that. But why is it okay for casinos? Because we have that warped sense of getting something for nothing, beating the system. So this idea of opportunity is always very, very strong in scams. This idea that you're getting something for nothing. There used to be a saying in the scam world, you can't cheat an honest man. That your mark, your victim's got to have an element of larceny in them in order to fall for something like that. I think that statement sounds great, but I don't think it's accurate, because you could cheat a lot of honest people all the time. They just don't know they're being cheated. But let me give you an example. This is your classic sort of scam email. I mean, look at the website, moa.gov.my. It's got the bad spelling. This is one of the old ones. Hopefully one of these emails will go straight into your junk. You'd never see it. But, you know, the sell is right here. Please, I will offer you 20% of the total sum of $4.2 million for your assistance. Right? You see this in that email and you go, oh, scam, delete, you know, 419 scam, all that kind of thing. However, the exact same deal was being offered by this guy. Right? That's Bernie Madoff, who recently passed away. But he's got an expensive cigar, an expensive suit. He moves around in the right circles in New York, and he stole a whole load of money by offering the same opportunity of getting something for nothing. A guarantee, if you invest with me, you will get 5, 10, 20% return on your money no matter what happens. Now, if you don't stop and think, hang on a minute, how is he giving me this guarantee? This sounds a bit too good to be true. Then, again, I don't want to say you deserve to be scammed because no one deserves to be scammed, but we need to start taking a little bit of personal responsibility with these things. If you don't think about that, then you should be. The final two are probably the most powerful, and they're probably the most deep-rooted in our psyche, in the way that we function. First one is social compliance. Social compliance is all about those shortcuts that you create when looking at uniforms, badges, logos, websites. You make assumptions. Company you've never heard of. You land on their website, it looks terrific. Right? You're about to buy a product, it looks great. You are actually just looking at a piece of code. There might be no company. This might be just some 16-year-old in the middle of nowhere running it from their bedroom, right? But we cannot help but make those assumptions, okay? Same thing with uniforms. Now, The Real Hustle, we did 2 scams where I dressed up as a police officer, full sort of bobby gear. And the BBC asked us never to do that again. 2 reasons, really. 1, possibly the most illegal thing you can do. 2, there's no skill involved. There's no skill. You can put on a policeman's uniform now, and you can scam people within minutes. People will not challenge you. One of the scams I did was I waited outside a cafe, a busy cafe, I think it was up in Hampstead, and I would stop people coming out of the cafe and say, did you get any change? Did you get any paper money change? Oh, yeah, fine. We've had reports that this cafe is passing off counterfeit notes. Can I have a look? And I would get them to hand me their wallet. And I'd take the wallet and say, if you just stand right here, I'll just go and check them in the van. There was no van. I would walk around the corner and bugger off with their wallet. No one asked me a single question. No one said, excuse me, can I see your warrant card? Incidentally, even if I showed them a warrant card, would they know what a real warrant card looks like? No. I'm hoping that a few of you here knows what a warrant card looks like. But, you know, the other problem is different police services across the country have got different looking warrant cards. So even if you know what Kent Police one looks like, you're not going to know what the Met one looks like. But you're making those assumptions. You're looking at that uniform, you're ascribing authority, and you proceed as follows. That's what I mean about hacking human nature. Your human nature is to look, make an observation, make an assumption. Well, guess what? The scammer's got different ideas. I'm going to play you a clip from a show that I did for the Discovery Channel. It was called The Mind Control Freaks, and it was all about putting psychological principles to the test. And this was filmed at a car park in New York, in Brooklyn, I believe. So you can see Manhattan in the background. And, well, it's pretty self-explanatory. Have a look. Has technology defeated us? I'm at a public car park in New York, armed with a paper-thin story and lots of nerve. I'm going to see how many strangers I can get to hand over their car keys. Wish me luck. The car lot is rigged with hidden cameras, so no one knows they're being filmed. It's no surprise that when asked to hand over their car keys to a stranger claiming he will park it for them, streetwise New Yorkers will look for another parking lot. So I'm going to try something else. I'm going to invest myself with power and authority. How am I going to do that? I'm going to use one of these. Now, once I get this on, even the most suspicious people turn to obedient sheep. I'll park it for you here because we're just moving some cars around. Okay? What was amazing about that is he didn't even ask me for a stub or anything. He just handed the keys over and walked off. These are your keys?
Yes.
Okay. I don't work for that car park.
Okay.
Did you think I did?
Yes.
Why?
Because you were standing over there in front of the parking lot.
It's
Where that?
This?
Yeah.
How much is your car worth?
Probably like 10,000.
This is worth $13. You just handed me the keys. But if I was to drive it off and you came back, what would you do?
I don't know, maybe call the cop if I don't see my
And what would you
car.
say?
I gave my car to somebody.
It's that lovely realization there. There we go. Again, you know, it is that shortcut that we make. I mean, a high-vis jacket, I can't tell you how much power you get from spending £20 in a high-vis jacket. You can ask people to stop in the street, pick up litter. It's incredible, just because of that high-vis jacket. And of course, you know, for upper, sort of higher types of scams, replace a high-vis jacket with a nice suit or an expensive watch or, you know, a prop like a car. Someone rocks up in a Porsche. Ooh, they must be rich, or they must know what they're doing. They might have rented it for the day for 100 quid and rocked up to your meeting. You know, all those assumptions that we make, you know, scammers really, really take advantage of those. And again, think back when you go into cyber, it's when you land on a nice-looking web page, when you're looking at a well-constructed, well-copied email from Apple or Amazon or PayPal. Again, you're making those assumptions because your brain looks at those logos and goes, oh, yeah, I know what this is. But you might not notice the little details that are different. Okay. Last one is social proof. Social proof is something you might have heard of as the herd principle. We all follow everybody else's actions. You're doing it right now. You're acting pretty much similarly to what your neighbors, the people in the vicinity, are doing. You're all facing the same way, paying attention to what I'm saying, etc., etc. And it works very, very well, because if I know that you are looking to those around you for clues as to how to behave, all I need to do is manipulate your environment. Okay, so all I need to do is just change that, have control of that, put you in a situation where you don't know what to do, and you look over and say, well, what is everybody else doing? I'm going to do the same. We used to do, in that discovery show that I showed you, we did a similar thing where I gave a talk, but there was about 100 people. And I said at the very beginning of the talk, by the way, in case the fire alarm goes, the fire exit is just there. And I pointed at the fire exit, just like that, had the fire exit sign. And everybody said, yeah, fine, okay. I start my speech, and about 10 minutes in, we sounded the fire alarm. And there was myself and 4 paid actors planted in the crowd. And as the fire alarm went off, myself and those 4 ran off in a completely opposite direction into the toilets, and everybody followed us. What do you do in those moments? You look to others to see how to behave. There's a wonderful experiment, again, if you've seen it online, where you pay like 4 or 5 people who are in it, and they stand in a big city and they just look up at a big building and they just keep looking up. And eventually you'll get a whole crowd just looking up. And you can ask them, you can interview them and go, what are you looking at? And they'll go, I don't know. I'm just looking up. Check it out, it's online. I mean, so many people have done it. Again, they'll just follow the herd. So, and that's very dangerous. However, on the other hand, let's be realistic about it. Following the herd is the reason that we're all here now. Because that's through evolution, right? If you see somebody running away 2,000 years ago, you know, we'd go, oh, he's running, let's all run. That's a good thing. You don't want to go, oh, there is a lion over there. Oh, now I'm dead. You know, that's what saved us, following the herd. But it's something to be aware of. We'll play you a fun little clip from an old TV show called Candid Camera. And this is, I think it's just the best example of how you can actually physically manipulate someone just by manipulating their environment. Have a look at this.
The gentleman in the elevator now is a candid star. These folks who are entering, the man with the white shirt, the lady with the trench coat, and subsequently one other member of our staff, will face the rear. And you'll see how this man in the trench coat tries to maintain his individuality But little by little, he looks at his watch, but he's really making an excuse for turning just a little bit more to the wall. Now we'll try it once again. Here's the candid subject. Here comes the Candid Camera staff, 3 of them at least. And this man has apparently been in groups before.
I think you should try that on the way out. There's a lift here. Surely 3 of you could get together and try it out. Again, it's extraordinary. One of the things we used to do in The Real Hustle, and it worked so well, and again, it was a fantastic example, is we'd target high-end hotels. So I would stand outside like this, wearing a suit, nothing that said hotel or the insignia or hotel manager, nothing at all, just a suit. And I would wait for tourists to come out. And clear tourists, you know, people with maps and things like that. And I would approach them very politely and say, did you get the memo that we put underneath the door during breakfast this morning? We're reprogramming all the locks. So I'm afraid when you come back, your key cards are not going to be working. And if you like, I could take your key cards and have a fresh one waiting for you when you come back in reception. Otherwise, there might be a bit of a queue and a bit of a faff. And I wouldn't want you to, after a long day sightseeing, you're having to wait for your key to be reprogrammed. And I had about a 70% hit ratio on that. People would just go, oh, okay, sorry, you know. They give me their key cards. And the wonderful thing now for scammers when it comes to hotels, any hotel, in fact, with key cards, is they put it in that lovely little sleeve for you, and they write your room number on you. So great, I have the key card, and I know what room it's in. Again, do me a favor, when you stay in hotels, just separate those two. If you drop your key card, there's no reason to have the room number with it. Just a little security thing. Now, in those circumstances where they were a bit apprehensive, they just didn't want to hand over their key card, what would happen with Jess, who was the 3rd member of the team, would be within earshot, about 6 feet away. She would be rummaging through her bag. But she was listening in. And if they were apprehensive, she would interrupt the conversation and go, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Is today the day we need to leave our key cards? Because I forgot to leave mine. Can I leave it with you? And she would hand me the key card in front of them. And 100% of the time, they would comply because they just saw someone else do it. So it's okay. So it's incredibly powerful what other people are doing. On cyber, of course, it's really obvious. Look at cyber, look at social media, likes and shares, right? You see a post, it's got 5 likes. You see a post, it's got 50,000 likes and 25,000 retweets. All of a sudden, you give it a bit more thought and a bit more importance. Why? Because others have done the same. So an incredibly powerful bit of psychology, what everybody else is doing. I'm going to talk to you a bit about John McCormack. Does anybody know who John McCormack is in this room? Anybody heard of him? Has anybody heard of fake bomb detectors? Yes. Caught a glimpse of one there. Okay, this is one here. So I had a pleasure of sort of playing around with one of these. This is sort of an incredible scam in my mind because it sort of culminates all of those things that we've just talked about coming neatly together in this just outlandish scam, which was just extraordinary. So this is a fake bomb detector. John McCormack went to prison for selling these, by the way. But I got to play with one on the Jeremy Vine show because the investigative journalist brought one in. And what you're looking at is a mold-injected plastic handle with a swivel there and a car aerial attached to it. There are no electronic parts in this thing at all. Nothing, right? It's just a piece of plastic with a swivelly antenna added to it. However, those cards that you see up there with the barcodes at the top were so that you can program your piece of plastic to find Semtex, dynamite, dollars, blood, diamonds, gold. You could program plastic and a car aerial. There's another shot of it. It comes in the case. The most expensive thing you're looking at here is the case that it came in it. It's a Pele case. If anybody knows that, they're really expensive, right? But here it is. And this guy was amazing at selling it because through bribing a couple of small armies in Africa, he got a few sales. And by getting those first sales, he was able to say, oh, I got sales in the Ugandan army. Would you guys like to buy them? And it kind of went from word of mouth. Now, people who tested it, you've got to wonder, what on earth were they thinking? But the thing is that once these were rolled out at checkpoints all over Afghanistan, the thing is, you will eventually find a bomb in a checkpoint using one of these, just by law of averages, right? It'll just happen by coincidence. Incidentally, it's based on how you would use it. You would extend the antenna and you would walk along the cars like this and point to the boots and stuff. And you would wait for the antenna to make a clear movement. Now, does anybody know about dowsing, right? It's exactly the same principle. You get the two rods, you keep walking, they meet and you find water. Completely and utterly ridiculous. I'm sorry if people in this room might have their illusion shattered. It doesn't work. It's completely bogus. It's like psychics and the rest of it. Happy to have a lengthier discussion with people who vehemently believe that dowsing works. They'll always go, oh, we were a dowser and we did find water. You lucked out. That's what happened. Because believe me, we've tested dowsers. There's nothing in it. It's the ideomotor syndrome. A tiny movement in your wrist, because of the physics, will accentuate a bigger movement of the car aerial. It's just luck. But eventually it will find a bomb. But it had all the elements of the scam, because other people bought it, others thought, oh, well, it must work if they've bought it. It also has got a lot of misdirection in it, because you're stopping to think about, hang on, what is this thing? How does it work? Because you're more focused on, I don't want bombs coming into a country. I want to be able to have something handy, portable, easy to use to find dangerous equipment and save people's lives. Okay? And also, the social proof angle is, it looks like it's sort of a specialized bit of kit, even though it's just completely rubbish. But all those cards, the way the molded injected foam, when you opened it, you thought, oh, this is a serious bit of kit here. It was just incredible. Attached to this, I don't know if you can see it, you probably can you see the little knob at the end? That was a sort of an LNB antenna, from the one that your old TV used to use. And you would attach to that a card reader. Again, the card reader was just a bit of plastic with a slot in it. It didn't have anything electronic in it. And that's how you would run the barcode to program. I mean, it sounds like I'm making it up. Trust me, just read it online. It's an incredible story. But anyway, why am I telling you this? Because rather dangerously, all this comes together. Now, this guy was a con man. He was making money. That's what he was out there to do. But do you remember a few years back in Sharm el-Sheikh, there was an airliner that went down, ISIS took responsibility, and the holiday resorts in Egypt said, we're going to up our security. And guess how they upped their security? Oh, by the way, that was the novelty golf ball finder that it was based on. This was a sort of a joke that was sold. It came with a videotape machine, and that did exactly the same thing. It had a little antenna so you could find your golf balls. It was a joke. That's where he got the idea. Back to Sharm el-Sheikh. How did they protect the tourists? Well, they checked each and every vehicle with these. Right? These are bomb detectors. Different type, but based on the same principle of a wibbly antenna. Very, very convincing. So, before I know we're going to have a few questions to talk about, any question you like. But before I do that, I'm going to leave you with the ABCs. Now, they were given to me rather generously by Professor Alan Woodward. I don't know if you are aware or know of Professor Alan Woodward. You should do. He writes brilliantly about cybersecurity. He's Professor of Cybersecurity at the University of Surrey. Find him on Twitter. He is fantastic. And he gave me these ABCs with kind permission to use. Oh, let me tell you about this, actually, before we get, sorry. Surprised myself there. Here's another, just a little fun bit. Push-button locks, like this one. not going to let you see too much of it. You've seen them around, yeah? Does anybody use one? Like, is it used in the offices? A few people nodding. Oh, okay, quite too many people nodding. Okay. So you can break these locks with a UV pen in 5 minutes. Okay, here's what you do. You take a UV pen with invisible ink and you rub down the buttons. Can't see the ink. You wait until the lock is used 1 or 2 times, and then you go back with your light and you find out which buttons have got no ink left on them. Now, those of you very observant in this room will go, well, hang on a minute. You might have the 4-digit code, but you don't have the order. But here's the thing, the order doesn't matter. Any combination of those 4 numbers will open that lock. If the code is 1234 and you enter 4321, the door will open. 1324, it will open, right? So many people use these locks because they're very convenient. You can reprogram them whenever you like. They don't need any power or batteries. Now, I'm not saying that these are bad locks. I'm just saying that we need to be a bit more upfront, a little bit more clear about the vulnerabilities in the equipment that we use. In the production office where we used to make the Real Hustle, that kind of lock was used to protect the IT room, right? I've got one of those locks. It's on my garden shed, right? We need to be a bit more upfront with people, with the general public, with co-workers about what we use, how we use it, and what the vulnerabilities are. So let's stop pretending that things are 100% secure. Nothing's 100% secure. And if you know the vulnerabilities, you can make the correct choice of where to use a lock like this. Now, here we go to the ABCs. I'll run through these quickly because we're running out of time for questions. A, assume nothing. When you get that text message from Lloyd's, don't assume it's from Lloyd's. The biggest problem we have in security is identifying who's on the other end of the email, the phone call, the text message. We just don't know, I'm afraid. As most of you know in this room, the best way to identify people, the best form of security is those 3 things: what I know, what I have, what I am. I can't think of any occasion where we use that triple system, right? What I know, a passport; what I have, a key, a fob, an RFID card; what I am, a biometric. We just don't use all 3. Okay, so at the moment, assume nothing. We cannot identify who's on the other end of that phone call. B, believe nothing. The content of that text message, you've spent X amount of money. Not necessarily true. Okay, we've got to do C before we get to B, which is challenge everything. Okay, make your own inquiries, use your own numbers, don't click on the links provided, etc. And I've added a cheeky D, which is delete if in doubt. Right? Nothing has ever happened, nothing bad's ever happened by deleting if in doubt. If it's real, if it's genuine, it'll find a way to get to you, again, if you've deleted. That's me done with everything I needed to tell you about. I believe that we've got time for some questions, possibly. So,
I have a question.
go on.
With all this skullduggery you've been involved with,
Yes.
does your wife trust you?
That's a good question. I think that's probably a question for her.
Okay. Anybody got a question for Alexis? Come on.
Could be about anything, security, the Real Hustle, anything you wanted to ask me. Yes?
I suppose a con man, and I'm thinking particularly clairvoyants, or maybe people like Adolf, are they always corrupt and know that they're tricking people? Or just sometimes they believe their own thing? Did the bomb detector man think they were bomb detectors at some point?
I think that's a really, really good and fascinating question. Just in case you didn't hear it, the con men, do they know that they're corrupt, or do they sometimes believe in their own bogus stuff? For my money, I think mostly they do and know that they're corrupt and peddling stuff. But you can never be too sure. You should all check out the documentary about, I think it's called The Inventor. It's about Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos, the system with 1 drop of blood that would do all those 200 tests. It's a fantastic story. Now, was Elizabeth Holmes a con woman? I'm not sure. I think she believed that eventually she would get there. And I think people like Madoff perhaps at some point start with, okay, I'm going to rob Peter to pay Paul, but eventually I'm going to sort it all out and it'll balance itself. I just need to get started. You know, the fake it till you make it principles that you have in Silicon Valley. But ultimately, I think there's got to be a moment, particularly, you know, if you're going to be a con man, you're going to be a bit smart. I mean, most con men who are idiots don't really make it. They get caught straight away. You know, and the con men I've met that have been caught, they've been caught after a long time of being quite successful. So I think definitely psychics have to know, because it's just complete BS what they do. And it's hurtful, and it is hugely damaging to the people that psychics get involved with. They really destroy lives. And I have no sympathy, as you can tell, for them at all. But I think they fully know what they're doing. But people like Elizabeth Holmes, recently I thought, actually, I don't think she set off to deceive. I think she was just telling a small lie in order to get the investment, because she thought, actually, if we get that money, then we can get to where we need to be. But then, you know, what was it, $9 billion later, she ended up with a machine the size of a printer that couldn't even do one blood test, let alone the 200. Another question? Yes?
Have you got any behind-the-scenes snippet that you can share with us about something that surprised you or didn't go well on The Real Hustle?
Oh, things that went wrong on The Real Hustle were very few and far between. I'll tell you why, and it's not me bragging. We were really well prepared, extremely well rehearsed, extremely well drilled, and extremely well prepared. Why? Because filming costs money, and you just can't waste. You can't just say, "Oh, we'll do it again until we get it." You know, we had 2 or 3 goes. We had some funny instances where we targeted people unbeknownst to us who were security experts, and when we came to the position of you know, will you sign the release form so we can play the footage? They would say, I'm working security. There's no way that I'm going to give you permission to show that I was scammed, which I kind of thought in hindsight, I understood at the time, but I thought as a security expert, if you've been scammed, I think that's a good thing, because you can say, look, if I can be scammed, then everybody can be scammed, and actually you could use that to your advantage. But we had, I'll tell you the place geographically where we had the toughest time pulling our scams. We scammed in Las Vegas, in Ibiza, we scammed pretty much everywhere. Glasgow. Really hard to scam people in Glasgow.
Oh, Jimmy.
It's a very tight community. A lot of people know each other. And actually as a community, they get involved. I remember I was trying to do a till hustle. It's kind of almost like shortchanging somebody in a cafe. And I was just quietly sort of trying to hustle this girl. She was getting confused, and she was getting money. And was going, no, actually, can I change it back? It was a sort of short-change hustle. The whole cafe got involved. No, that's not right. No, and like people would come up, and all of a sudden I'm like outnumbered with people going, hang on, you know. And they didn't know her. They were just regulars in the cafe, and they wanted to help. And actually, it sort of reinforced my hope in humanity that, you know, as people sort of actually looking out for each other. Whereas in London, people were sort of, you know, when something like that happens, people sort of just quietly look away and go, oh, I don't know what's going on. Sort of go away. Any other questions? Yes?
Did you ever get into trouble?
Did we ever get into trouble doing The Real Hustle? No, because when I say no, does having a man with a samurai sword chase you in Scotland again? That was a bizarre phone call I received. We'd stolen his television, and as I walked in sort of carrying this sort of box that had a TV but didn't, I looked over and he had all these sort of medals and black belt and things. He was a big martial artist. Anyway, we left with a van with the TV, and we went round the corner and parked, and I got a phone call from Paul saying, where are you? I said, around the corner in the van. He said, stay in the van. He's got a samurai sword, and he's looking for you. So, yeah, that was an unexpected phone call. But actually, most of the time, in fact, all of the time, we would, because the worst thing that would happen to us is people would call the police before we had a chance to stop and say, no, it's a TV show, it's okay. But everywhere we went, so if we were doing a scam in Croydon, we'd call the Croydon police, we'd tell them exactly what we're doing, so they would be aware. But I think we only had, in the 100 episodes, 500 scams, we only had, I think, people call the police twice just before we get to them, but it was fine. And by the way, both those times that I dressed up as a policeman, when you do that for any kind of TV, even if you were shooting The Bill, if anybody here remembers The Bill, you have to have a real policeman with you at all times with a warrant card, because if there is an emergency and somebody ran up to me and said, "Oh, someone's sort of been run over," and I go, "Oh, I don't know, I'm a presenter with a with a costume." You know, you have to have the real policeman there to actually take over. But yeah, no, we didn't get into that much trouble. We sort of managed to avoid all that. Yes. Sorry, say again. Okay. You don't work for them, do you? Okay, fine. Look, there is no scientific knowledge. There's no scientific proof behind that. In fact, one of the shows that were made by the same production company that we did The Real Hustle for, forgive me, I'm going to swear, but it was the title of the show. It was called The Bullshit Detectives. And they got somebody with that was selling them their services as water diviners, and they brought her in, and they said, "Right, you've got 6 buckets. Under this one bucket, there is a bowl of water." They put it in, so we're going to mix them around. You know, you find it, and she was like, "Oh, you know." She took the whole theatre, you know, and eventually she was like, "Here." They're like, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes." They lifted it up. And surely enough, there was a bowl of water, and she said, "See?" And I said, "Well, that's great, but you failed to find all the bowls of water because each bucket has a bowl of water underneath it." So they were all full of water. And then she got upset, and she said the cameras were interfering with her rods. This always happens when you deal with psychics and anybody who's using their power. All of a sudden, the microphones are interfering, the cameras, radio frequencies. You know, I'm sorry, I've been in this business of deception for way too long, and I have yet to come across. I'm open to be convinced, by the way, very happy to be proved wrong, but so far I have never come across any evidence that any of these people are anything other than charlatans. Apologies for that. Might be a bit strong. Sorry.
Alexis, we've come to the end of this day, sadly.
Sadly.
But we're so grateful that you've come along and imparted your skills and knowledge, and I hope you stay out of jail.
Done well so far.
As the last presentation of the day. And I'm sure you all agree, great stuff and a good end.
Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you.